Today on Coffee Roasting Legends, San Franciscan roasters Bill Kennedy speaks with Luke Waite of Pomelo Coffee Consulting.
Welcome to the Coffee Roasting Legends podcast. My name is Bill Kennedy, and I'm the owner of the San Franciscan Roaster Company. And we manufacture high-end artisanal specialty coffee roasters. And over the years, I've had the privilege of meeting and learning from countless inspiring individuals, roasters, business owners, other coffee enthusiasts, and so on. On this podcast, I'll be sharing their stories, insights, and passion for coffee, exploring the craft, the culture, and the people who make coffee roasting truly legendary. Today's guest is Luke Waite, founder of Pomelo Coffee Consulting and creator of the Core 7. He helps roasters build sustainable and profitable businesses, and his upcoming book, The Owner's Manual: A Guide to Sustaining a Coffee Roaster, is all about that. Luke, welcome to Coffee Roasting Legends.
Bill, thank you for having me. It's good to be here. Good to meet you, and thanks for having me.
I know when we first met a few years ago, I think on LinkedIn, right? And we've chatted off and on, and so I've seen where you've come from. Would you tell us kind of a little bit about what you're doing right now, and right now, and then I want you to go all the way back to the dark ages and tell me where you started from in coffee.
Love it. So right now, I just finished up the book, and we're about to send it to print here. And my work is all with coffee roasters. I help them with three things: their people, their processes, and their profit. What that ends up coming out to is I help them make more money. I help them optimize their business practices within their business, and I help them with their team to develop structures to help them build businesses that matter to them and that are structured in such a way that they can last for the long haul, and create structures that allow them to be able to not live every single day feeling like they're going to pull out all their hair, but be able to step away when they need to take a vacation and to rely on their teams. So that's what I do. I help owners structure their businesses and make a little money on the way.
You know, I really, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. You know, in our industry, as we were discussing before we started, there is no shortage of people who will tell you how to roast coffee and what to look for, the nuances of coffee roasting. I think the market is kind of saturated with that. Coming from a background in roasting coffee, I guess there's always a concern. Hey, I want to make sure I roast this coffee really great. I think there can be a false connection, though, in that if you think you roast coffee really, really well, you're naturally going to be successful in business. But at the end of the day, this is still a business. And uh, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to pay the bills and put a roof over our head, our family's head, and pay for meals, all that sort of thing. So I really appreciate kind of your approach to this whole thing to help people to be successful in business, and then specifically coffee roasting business. So tell us how you got there.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. We need to sort out our own finances and make sure it makes sense and that we don't just have a hobby. But I got into coffee. I was going to Bible college, and a friend of mine who lived on the same floor as I did was super into coffee. And I would go down to his room, and he had a Chemex, and he had a record player, and we would turn on some good music and brew some coffee from Intelligentsia, because we were in Chicago. And he would just brew coffee, and we would read together and write papers. And I got really interested in it and became a pastor. And then I was not a pastor because it just wasn't a good fit for me. And I no longer go to church or anything like that. And as I'm sure you can tell from the book, I cuss like a sailor, and I'm not a part of that community anymore. But in the process, when I left the position where I was a pastor, I my partner, she was asking me what I wanted to do. What are you going to do? You could do anything. You're in school, anything you want to learn. There's no strict requirements for how much you're going to make right now. You can go make minimum wage. And if you could do anything, what could you do? And I said I wanted to be in coffee because I had that memory of drinking coffee with my friend on his dorm and being like, oh man, that's really cool. And so I applied to a bunch of roasters in Chicago, and then ended up working at a roaster or at a cafe that had a roastery in one of their locations. And then ended up building an education program for them. That company grew really quickly and got acquired by another roaster that was trying to grow really, really quickly. And I left there and went and worked for another roaster in Chicago as well, and then managed one of their cafes, helped them open a couple other cafes, built their education program. And then from there, did sales at a different coffee roaster, and then was approached to work at another coffee roaster and did sales for them as well. And this was also during the pandemic when everyone's job was just keep the thing alive.
Right.
And you work here if you can keep the thing beating.
Right.
And so my role went from, oh, I'm trying to sell coffee to I was delivering coffee. I was working on the cold brew company. And then found myself doing a lot of operational work. And I credit the owners of this company. It's Metric in Chicago. Xavier and Darko were like, you need to be our head of operations. And I was flattered because I had wanted to be, that was a goal that I had set in my mind, but I was like, I don't know if I'm ready. And they were like, no, you're ready. You should do this. And it was the first moment in my career where I realized this is this is my contribution to the industry, is to help coffee roasters on the operations side of the business. And from there, my partner and we bought a camper and traveled around the country a little bit because she was remote. So I actually quit working in coffee for a minute, and was doing some design work. And then I was being approached by some roasters that were asking for help with their operations and structuring some of their pricing and things of that nature. And after working a couple projects for about 4 different roasters, I realized I should probably charge for what I'm doing. And you mentioned eating is important. So
Yeah.
I then started building what is now Pomelo. And we're an operations consulting firm. I only work with coffee roasters. I only help them with 3 things: their people, their process, and profit. And that's sort of the genesis that led us to today, to the Core 7 and to why we're even talking today.
Okay, so tell me about the 3 Ps you just said. You said it really fast.
Yeah. Your people, your processes, and your profit. And all of my work is surrounded around that. And for, and some of the things that are connected to the Core 7, which is what the book is about, it's all stems out of your people and your process and your profit. Um, but it's a little too restrictive. It doesn't expand enough into, because you have your people. Well, if you don't have good people, you can't implement processes because your people are the ones that are carrying out your processes. You have your profit, which is connected to your wholesale and your sales and all the other sales cores. And then you have your profit, which you have to have profit to have people. And so all of the cores are connected to those 3 Ps.
So let's get into that a little bit more in a minute and tie that into why you called why your concept is called Core 7. I did want to make a note. Sometimes people trying to figure out what they're going to do when they grow up, kind of stuff. It sounded to me like you were getting all these affirmations from people. Said, "Hey, can you help me to do this? Can you help me to do that?" Um, People saw that you had an expertise in those areas, um, and they respected that. Whatever you did, you exuded confidence and competence in those areas, and so good job. And
Thank you.
well, you don't know, but I think it was very instrumental in guiding your path, right? And so, okay, you're no longer well, you're not in teaching people how to do coffee, you told me. You're into strictly coffee consulting.
Mhm.
So let's start with what is Core 7
Yeah.
and how does that tie into the three Ps? And then
Yeah.
what do you do for people if someone wanted to reach out to you?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, what do you do for them?
Yeah, let's do it. So the Core 7 is a framework, which is a fancy way of saying, how do I get how do I get repeatable results for the clients that I work with,
Hmm.
is using this framework. Um, when I started the firm, my dad had a friend. His name's Don. He's frankly, I credit him for the Core 7. He is a consultant for companies that fill the CPG products that are in your pantry and in your refrigerator. Very, very large consumer product good companies are who he's
Okay.
consulting for. And so when I started the firm, I asked my dad if I could meet with Don, and Don was very gracious and was like 100%. And Don walked me through his whole process and his framework for how he works with his companies that he's consulting with. And this was virtual, and he turns to the screen uh, and he asks me, "So what's your framework? How are you going to work with clients?" And I didn't have any framework at the time because all I had done was learned on the ground and built processes that worked for me and worked for the companies that I was working for.
Okay.
So from there, I started to flesh out what are the things that every roastery, whether you're doing, $200,000 or doing $10 million or $50 million, what are the things you have to have sorted out and have to have structure around in order for you to be able to, as we said, take a vacation and pay your people well and all these different things. So that's where the Core 7 sort of came out of, was distilling down what are the core elements to a coffee roasting business that you have to have in order to create stability, to where you're not rebuilding the wheel every time you get a wholesale order, or every time you hire a new person, or every time you buy a green coffee. So that's sort of where the Core 7 came out of. And just to briefly run through them, the first core is sales. The second core is your product. The third core is your cash and cash management. The fourth core is green coffee. The fifth core is your roastery operations. How does the actual floor in the roasting facility function? The sixth one is your people, and the seventh is your wholesale program. And in order to have a meaningful coffee roaster that's going to take care of you and your team well, you have to have those seven elements sorted out.
Okay.
So that's the Core 7. That's where it came from. And the connection point to the three Ps, I think, is what you're asking about. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, obviously those concepts go together, and it almost sounds like the three Ps fit in each one of the segments of the core 7.
100%.
Hmm. And
And
so,
they and
yeah,
and they cross over it too. But
sure.
the reason why the book isn't the three Ps is because uh it felt too reductionistic. That
Uh,
wasn't there was more in each of those three. The three Ps, the people, the process, and profit, sort of span over and have crossover between the Core 7. The Core 7 are those elements you have to focus on.
right,
Yeah.
got it. So moving forward, then, you are strictly doing the consulting
Mhm.
right now.
Mhm.
And so I'm suppose you're soliciting clients or waiting for them to come to you and all that. In the meantime, while you're doing that, I know that you're doing some work with RTD beverages.
Mhm.
You've had a background in cold brew. Kind of expound on that type of experience and how that ties in with what you're doing in consulting.
Yeah, this is part of some of the work that I do is help coffee roasters build those programs because we'll use cold brew as an example. You roast some coffee and then your clients start asking you for cold brew, and what ends up happening oftentimes is folks will try to do it all in house, and it is a mess. I've trust me, I've done it. It's a mess to try and do it in house, and they will oftentimes try to build the whole process internally, and it's a bit of a challenge. And at scale, there is a moment where it does make sense to do it internally, but oftentimes early on, when you're in sort of in the midlife of a coffee roaster, it oftentimes makes sense to co-pack that, and that was a significant portion of what I was doing when I was running cold brew company, was managing that relationship. And so I think your question was around how does that relate to um, the roasting company?
Well, that too, or your consulting expertise as a whole.
Hmm.
Uh, what is the breadth of your? Yeah, I'm trying to go into what is the breadth of your experience here that you're bringing to the table for people uh,
Yeah.
who are looking. Obviously, it's easy to find problems
Hmm.
inside your organization.
Hmm.
Um, well, not necessarily actually. Sometimes, if they bring someone like you in to an organization and you make an observation
Hmm.
from outside of the box, if you will,
Yeah.
you see problems that are not readily seen internally,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Let's maybe talk a little bit about that. What is your
Yeah.
breadth of experience and where
Hmm.
do you see you finding problems to help people find solutions? And then I
Yeah.
think you can segue into because you've also developed a peer-to-peer coaching program
Hmm.
too. And how does that work in finding solutions for your clients?
Yeah. You had something really important. It's one thing to find problems, it's another thing to find solutions. And with my work, so one of the things that I do for folks is I offer a diagnostic assessment. It's 25 points. It's far beyond the core seven. The core seven is housed within it, but we look at everything from your website, your packaging, how do you receive orders? What information are you communicating to wholesale accounts? So we look at sort of how does the whole thing work together, and then offer what's really good about each of the 25 points, what could be better, and provide actionable, clarified, you know, this is what we think you should do to improve your sales process, or maybe your cash management. Maybe they're over leveraged in their backstock, and so those are the types of things that we help clients with. Is we're going to go through, again, using the core seven framework. We go through and we assess. We'll take sales, for example. What is your sales process like? Is there a way that we can increase your close percentage? And I'll give you an example. So one time I built a sales process for somebody, and we were able to increase their sales conversion rate by 54%. And it was strictly by implementing a sales process.
Got it.
That's it. And so that's an example of how we would help a client is we'll go through the diagnostic assessment. We can find problems. We're not just going to say, oh, that's leaking and you have a hole in your roof. You can see that. What we want to do is find challenges that are going to either save you money or make you money, and
Right.
offer solutions in those areas. And that's an example of one area, and that we would do that. And every single one of the cores, we can do that, whether it be in your product or your cash management or your roastery operations. So that's the first answer to your question. The second piece related to Junto, which is a peer-to-peer coaching group that I run. The way that it's structured is there's typically between 4 and 6 owners in a group. We meet once a month as a group, and somebody's on the hot seat, and they get to share about a project they're working on, a challenge they're facing, or they can also just receive feedback on something they're thinking about. And they present that to the group. The group has a time to respond with some questions and some clarifying time. And then the last element is where we provide feedback on here's some things to watch out for. No one is allowed to say you should. The only thing they're allowed to say is to offer, here's a similar experience that I went through in my business, and here's how we handled that. So I think that's the important piece there. And we read some books together. There's an option to add some one-on-one time with myself as well. And then if you're involved in Junto, you're grandfathered into the Slack channel as well, so you can ask questions. Even once you're not a member of an active group, you can still ask questions and be involved in the virtual community. So that's kind of how it's structured.
I've recently had my own experience where, going from a singular coach to a community like what you just said, and that I I can't I have to say how much value I have found hearing from other people and other experts. Because kind of if you're in a successful business, even if it has its challenges, you're still an expert in your area, and not everybody goes through the exact same path, right? And so being able to share, this is what I did to when I faced the challenge that you're in, is incredibly valuable. I would also say that the sense of community that you're able to get when you have peers that you can, let's say, without fear of judgment, uh, you can share your challenges, and and then offer without fear of judgment your solution or your idea. And it may not work. Usually what happens is there's a synthesis of ideas, right?
Yes.
That kind of come together for an individual owner, uh, to, okay, I'm going to take these little pieces, create this program for my application, and boom. And then you come back next week or next month, whatever. This is what I did. This is how it worked. This is where it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
This is where all that sort of stuff. Am I hitting that kind of what you're getting at in the Junto?
100%. And so much of it, I was just speaking with one of the folks that was in the group that just wrapped up, and what he had said was, I the validation I received that I'm not crazy for the decisions I'm making and
Yeah.
what I'm doing and where I'm at in my business is really helpful. And I'll give you an example. This happened a few months ago in one of the Junto groups. We were just going through and talking about what is your labor cost per pound? Because no, we don't know. It's not
Right.
something that, and that's one of the challenges with coffee or specialty, I should say, is there isn't great benchmarking. And
Mhm.
so as a result, we're, we get into our little, our screens,
Yeah.
and we're, trying to find information of what is my cost per pound? Is it good? Is it bad? Where am I at? And since we don't have it, there's a bunch of insecurity that can build up. But then you get in a room with a couple of people and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that $1.50 a pound for labor is actually very pretty good. And there's some roasters that you've heard of that are around $5 a pound, in labor.
Yeah.
So that is part of it too, to what you're speaking to, of like getting into a room with some folks that are in a similar place as you, to let you know that you're not crazy and you're actually probably doing a little better than you think you are.
No, that's amazing. I think too, well, in any business, but also in this business, in a lot of ways, everybody feels a little bit like an island.
Yeah.
Because if you're not part of a larger conglomerate, you are, well, for lack of a better term, a mom and pop. I'd
Hmm.
say so many specialty places are mom and pops or a really tight, partnership that you feel like you're on an island.
Yeah. It's lonesome.
And you have to feel like you have to answer all these questions all by yourself. So I
Yeah.
really do appreciate the approach that you're taking. And
Mm.
now, if someone wants to get involved in the Junto type of thing,
Yeah.
I mean, or engage you personally in your
Hmm.
services,
Hmm.
what would be their pathway to get to you or to, you know, one of these communities?
Yeah. Well, it's super easy to get involved in the Junto group. Um, it's ongoing, and so they can join at any time. There's no, it's a monthly fee. And I used to do 6-month cohorts, but I just realized that at the end of it, people are kind of wanting a little bit more. And so it's ongoing. You can come for a month or two and you can leave it whenever you want. So that's one way to get involved. The other way to get involved is to engage me as an advisor. I can come and this is actually something that I do quite a bit of is owners will approach me and say, "Hey, I just need a little bit of guidance on this project I'm working on. Just
Hmm.
need to know, speaking about validation or, running some ideas by some folks. That's something I do for quite a few folks is, and we meet, once a month for a quarter or 2 or 3 quarters. And they bring a host of questions and challenges they're facing, and then we work through them and provide some structure for, okay, here's your next 5 steps to take, and then we'll talk about what happened next month. And then if somebody wants to engage me to actually implement the core 7 in their business, that's also a thing that they can do. But that's a year-long process to go into their business. And I'm essentially working as a fractional operations person at that point. So those are
Sure.
the 3 ways that folks can engage me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fractional part has really become popular
Mm.
these days. And yeah, you hear the fractional CFOs and all those sorts of
Yeah.
things. Um, I think that's so popular because a lot of places, well, they can't afford, a single salary for
Right.
that level of a person.
Right.
And so they're afraid that level of person is not accessible to them.
Totally.
From a fractional point of view, it puts it into bite-sized pieces.
Totally.
And, and the other thing too is like sometimes it's really hard to implement everything all at once.
It is.
Um, and it's like almost impossible sometimes.
It is.
And so a fractional person can come in and said, okay, I see the big picture. Let's work on this,
Yep.
this little thing,
Yep.
fix it, get it done. And then we'll look at the next little thing.
Yep.
And we'll baby steps, if you will,
Yes.
teach you how to get all those dialed in so you can scale and all that good stuff. So,
I love that.
well, listen, yeah, we do this. It's been half an hour. Maybe it's my generation. I do not like 3-hour long podcasts. I don't know how to
Sure.
listen to it,
What's wrong with that?
but a half an hour is pretty good in my mind.
I love it.
And then what's that old saying? Leave them wanting for more.
That's right.
So anyway, Luke, thank you so much for joining this podcast. Yes, you're a roasting legend, and I think you're a good person to go to for the creation of future legends. Let's put it
That's
that
very
way.
sweet. That's very, very kind. Thank you, Bill, so much for having me, and it's good to see you as always.
Well, last thing, if someone wants to send you an email, what's your
Yeah,
email address?
super easy. Pomelocoffee@gmail.com.
Pomelo Coffee, and that's Pomelo.
That's correct.
Pomelo. Okay, you tell everybody what a pomelo is.
I
Go
love it. So
go ahead.
pomelo is a citrus fruit, and the way I always describe it is it's if a orange and a grapefruit had a baby. It's the sweetness of an orange with the sort of like bitterness and dryness of a grapefruit, the best of both worlds.
Okay, and that's a pomelo. And now, thank you. You've just created a perfect mnemonic for everybody to remember pomelo. And of course, everybody remembers coffee. And of course, everybody on the planet knows Gmail.
That's correct.
So, pomelocoffee.com. Sorry, that's coming. pomelocoffee@gmail.com.
That's correct.
So, all right, Luke, thanks again, and wish you the very best. And you know what? We should touch base in a year and a half, something like that, and
Let's do it.
let's do this again. And
Let's do it.
let's talk about the success of your book.
That's very
And what's
sweet.
your book's name again? Say that.
The Owner's Manual, A Guide to Sustaining a Coffee Roaster.
Soon to be on Amazon, right? How do you do pre-orders if you wanted to do that?
It won't be on Amazon. I'm gonna do all the distribution myself. So you got to go to my website and you can pre-order. Pre-orders are live. You can pre-order there's a hard copy, a paperback, and then a digital version, and then there will be an audio version at some point. But it just takes time to record that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
yeah.
And your website, pomelocoffee.com?
Yep, PomeloCoffeeConsulting.com.
Pomelo Coffee Consulting.
Yep.
Got it. All right. Sorry, just trying to make, I used to be a school teacher and then a principal and all that. And I'm all about education and learning and helping people to remember. So
You got to say it 3 times.
3 times, pomelocoffeeconsulting.com. It's my 3rd time.
There you go. I love it.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank
Wish you
you.
the best. And yeah, we'll be talking in a little bit.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Bill, how do I get you on my podcast?
So you just email me, bill@sanfranroaster.com.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, and I picked San Fran Roaster because people don't know where to put the S's or the C's on San Franciscan.
Yep.
Mess up. And you know what? I just don't have enough money to buy all the variations of San Franciscan that there are of the people come up with. So, but San Fran Roaster kind of rolls off the tongue, and so that's what we are on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Cool.
Of course, our email, all our emails and our website. So
I love it. Well, I'll let you get out of here. I know you got a boogie, but I just wanted to thank you, and I would love to have you on the podcast at some point. So I'll send over an email.
I'd love it as well. Okay, Luke.
Awesome.
You have a good day. All right.
Thanks, Bill. Cheers.